Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Basics with Babish, where this week we're taking a look at one of the most elemental elements of cookery, stock. If you haven't made homemade stock yourself, you cannot imagine the difference between it and the store-bought version. And that difference shines in chicken noodle soup, something that you thought you knew until you made it completely from scratch yourself. Let's get down to basics. Okay, so the first and most important takeaway from this episode is how to make a good stock. Homemade stock is one of the most versatile and important tools that you can have in your kitchen, and you should always keep some on hand. Anything you have left over, freeze it, you won't be sorry. The formula is pretty simple. A few aromatic vegetables like carrots and celery, no need to break these down into too small pieces. Next up, we need something oniony. I'm going with leek this time around, but you can just use white or Spanish onion, scallions, anything with a nice mild oniony flavor. I'm also going to add some root vegetables here, starting with a large parsnip. This is going to add some peppery bite. Just like the carrot, we're simply peeling and cutting into a few pieces. I'm also going to add a nice turnip. This is going to add to the sort of winter vegetable nature of this stock, but you can omit or add as you like. There's a lot of room for experimentation here, but if you follow these steps exactly, you will end up with a delicious, sippable chicken stock and or the best chicken noodle soup you will ever have in your life. One absolute must is an entire head of garlic cut right down the center to expose all the cloves. No need to peel it, just slice and go. And because you can't really have too oniony of a stock, I'm also going to add a large Spanish onion. I'm just peeling and cutting into quarters, keeping the pieces whole. Now it's time to deal with the meat side of our stock, and if you still have some of your reserved chicken spines from previous episodes or previous chicken related excursions, we're going to cut these into 1 or 2 inch lengths. This is going to better expose all that good stuff inside the bones. Now if chicken spines or carcasses are unavailable, a great option is chicken wings. They're inexpensive and full of cartilage and connective tissue, which is exactly what we want in our stock. Now I'm adding the last few drops from a bottle of good neutral flavored oil like vegetable or canola, bringing to a shimmer over high heat and then beginning to brown our chicken pieces. This is optional. If you want a lighter colored stock, skip this step, but if you want a nice dark, more richly flavored stock, which I prefer, at least in the case of chicken noodle soup, go ahead and brown all of your chicken pieces, or at least half of them. We just want to get some Maillard reaction going. This is where the roasty, unctuous chicken flavor is going to come from. As is the case with all things we sear in stainless steel pans, we're going to let them sit undisturbed for a few minutes until a brown crust forms and it lifts off the pan. Don't touch them if they're still sticking. Now, as you can see, I only seared about half of my chicken pieces, and I'm going to add the rest of the chicken and our prepared aromatic vegetables. If you really want to up the roasty flavors, you can also sear the onions, or you can throw all this stuff in a high temperature oven until everything is good and browned. There's also no need to make this from pristine new vegetables like these. You can make it from scraps and trimmings from other dishes that you've made. But do not skimp on the fresh herbs. I'm going to add a few sprigs of thyme and parsley, along with a few whole peppercorns, but no salt. Do not salt your stock. You don't know what level this is going to boil down to, how thin it's going to be, how thick it's going to be, and you want to be able to control the salinity of your final dish. Now, as you slowly bring your stock to a bare simmer, you're going to notice that some scum forms on the top. This is just some gross stuff, impurities coming out of the chicken pieces and the vegetables. We want to skim this off using a soup ladle. You don't have to do this, but leaving the scum in there will make the stock more cloudy. We're letting that go for a bare minimum of 4 hours and up to 12, during which time I'm going to start prepping my vegetables for the chicken noodle soup. I've got carrots, celery, a parsnip that I'm going to chop very finely because it doesn't cook down as quickly as carrots or celery, maybe half a turnip that I'm similarly going to cut into planks and into tiny bite-sized pieces, mainly just because I want the suggestion of turnip. I don't want big old chunks. The carrots, celery, noodles, and chicken are the stars of the show here. Everyone else is just a backup singer, but together they will form a beautiful symphony. I don't know. I'm not so great with metaphors. You'll notice I'm setting the onion aside. You'll see why later. For now, it's time to drain our stock. Ideally, do this through a cheesecloth if you can to catch all the little particles, but in a pinch, a regular strainer works just fine. Let this guy drain for a good long while. You want to make sure you get every single drop. This stuff is liquid gold. Now it's time to set this aside and keep it warm while we get our soup started. Start by heating some olive oil or other little bit more flavorful oil over medium-high heat until shimmering, and adding the onion first. This is because while I want the other vegetables to retain some of their structure and vegetableness, I want to make sure that the onions are really soft and integrated into the soup. So after they have softened up a bit, we're going to add the rest of our vegetables, just warming through before adding our chicken stock. And now over high heat, we're going to bring this guy to a simmer. As it's coming up to a simmer, because it's going to take a few minutes, we're going to layer a few more flavors. I'm going to add some roughly chopped parsley. I'm adding this early on because I want its flavor to mellow out as the soup cooks. And one of several elements that pushes this soup from goodness to greatness, grated ginger and lemongrass. You're not even going to be able to remember what canned chicken noodle soup tastes like after you taste this stuff. So once we get this guy up to a rolling boil, we're going to add our chicken thighs, boneless and skinless. We want these guys to cook fast. We don't want the extra fat that comes with skin, and we want dark meat. Dark meat shredded in chicken noodle soup is so categorically better than white meat. White meat becomes dry, it gets chewy, it is not a good choice for chicken noodle soup. There's still some fat in these thighs, so we're going to skim that off as it rises to the surface. And after 15 to 20 minutes of a rolling boil, our chicken thighs will be ready for extraction. If they're undercooked, it doesn't really matter because we're going to be adding them back to the soup and they will finish cooking, but they're easier to shred if they're fully cooked. Using a pair of small forks, start shredding the chicken into bite-sized pieces. You can alternately cut it into cubes if you like, but I think this is a bit more of a rustic presentation and a better textural choice for the soup. Add it back to the pot, and if at this point your vegetables are starting to get too soft, take the soup off the heat. And now for a couple elements whose flavors I want to keep fresh and bright, so we're adding them right at the end. Some freshly chopped dill. A ton of it. I love a ton of dill, but this is personal preference. And I want a little bit of fresh crunch in this soup, so I'm going to add some minced scallions. Letting these cook for no more than a minute because I just want them to get to know each other in the pot. Now, at long last, it is time to season. Do not season until your soup is complete. And now you might be saying, but Andy, where are the noodles? Calm down, I'm getting to that. To prevent mushy noodles in your leftover soup, always store the soup noodleless and cook the noodles in the soup as you serve it. So I am ladling out the amount that I want to serve into a separate pot and adding some egg noodles or whatever kind of pasta you want. But I prefer egg noodles. They're classic, they're eggy, and they are spoon friendly. That is the most important element in a chicken soup noodle. Season a little bit more as necessary because we're adding noodles and these need a little bit more salt. And now it's time to serve up a bowl of what I can confidently say is the best chicken noodle soup in the world. This stuff will cure the common cold, it will mend a broken heart, it will improve your disposition and outlook on life in general, and that will ripple out endlessly across society, improving the world as we know it. Sorry, I just really, really love this soup. And so will you.